Welcome to the Superdry podcast. We're going to be focusing on some of the topics covered in the Future, Engage, Deliver leadership program. In today's podcast, I'm going to be focusing on the 4 different energies of leadership. Peter Drucker said, "The principal job of a leader is to manage your energies and the energies of the people around you." And we all have different approaches and different energies that will feel more natural to us. So let's have a look at the 4 different energies of leadership. So the first one that we looked at is the idea of the physical leader. Now, this is the kind of person that often you'll see lots of gestures, lots of motion, the kind of person, almost a Duracell bunny kind of leader that never stops. It might be the person who has lots of volume, the way they use their voice, the tone of their voice. It might be all to do with their stamina, often the kind of person who's first in, last out of the office. Or the kind of person who likes always to be hands-on, shirt sleeves rolled up and leading from the front. When this kind of energy is overplayed, it can often come across as being either overbearing or in some cases even aggressive. Now, when we looked at people who showed these kind of attributes on the programme, the names that kept coming up were the likes of Gordon Ramsay or Alex Ferguson, the football manager. So that's someone showing that real physical leadership. The next energy is that of the intellectual leader. Now, this is the kind of person who always seems to be thinking before they speak. Often will come across very formal, very structured in the way they put across their argument. Probably very good at debating and probably quite eloquent in the way they put themselves across. Often will be very rational and very logical. When it's overplayed, can sometimes come across as being opinionated or the kind of person who just won't listen to other people's opinions. The kind of names that kept coming up on this one were the likes of Stephen Fry or Arsene Wenger. So the next one is that of the emotional leader. Now, this is the kind of person who shows a real openness or even a vulnerability, the kind of person who draws people towards them. Probably very good listeners and probably great at building rapport and relationships. The kind of person who can walk into a room and instantly start building those connections. Probably fantastic at showing empathy and as a result, really building trust with other people. When it's overplayed, it can sometimes come across as being manipulative or playing on people's heartstrings. The kind of names that kept coming up here were the likes of Oprah Winfrey or Princess Diana. And the last of the energies is that of the spiritual leader. Now, this is the kind of person who often seems to have a calmness or a stillness about them. Kind of person who's very resolute. So once they've decided where it is they're heading, nothing will knock them from this path. Kind of person who's fantastic at describing vision and possibility. So really being able to articulate not what is today, but what could be. And as a result, put lots of belief and lots of meaning into what it is they talk about. When it's overplayed, it can sometimes come across as being a bit of a zealot or shoving it down your throat to some extent. And the kind of names that kept coming up here were the likes of Steve Jobs and Nelson Mandela. So that's the real spiritual leader. So what does this mean for your leadership? Well, as always, it's about being more conscious of your style and experimenting with different approaches. So the kind of questions to ask yourself are, which is my strongest? Which is my most used energy? And how does this serve me well in times of need or in times of stress? But does it ever trip me up? Is it sometimes not the right style to be using? And which is the one that maybe you use the least? And what would happen if you could use that energy more often? This isn't about trying to be someone else. It's about flexing your own leadership style. It's about asking that question, what would happen if? So as an example, if physical was the energy that I tend to use the least, and in meetings I tend to sit back until spoken to, me turning up the physical might just mean speaking and putting forward my ideas a little bit earlier. If intellectual is the one that maybe I use the least, it could be that when running my own team meetings, I tend to just do it on the hoof and make it up when I get there. But it might mean sending out an agenda a couple of days in advance. If emotional is the one that I use the least, it might be that I pretty much have a home me and a work me, but just bringing more of me into the workplace, asking people what they've been up to at the weekend, might be me using more of that emotional energy. Or using more of the spiritual might just be telling people why I do what I do, why am I so passionate about it, and what is the future we're trying to create together as a team. So as with all elements of FED, it's about consciously trying different approaches and noticing what happens. As a wise man once said, if you always do what you've always done, you will always get what you always got.